Hi learners, welcome to the 19th lesson of my course Ecology from Cells to Gaia. Today we will talk about conservation biology. Conservation is the science concerned with increasing the probability that Earth species and communities, or more generally its biodiversity, will persist into the future. Biodiversity is, at its most basic, the number of species present, but it can also be viewed at a smaller scale, for instance as a genetic variation within population, and at larger scale as a variety of community types present in a region. About 1.8 million species have been so far named, but the real number is probably between 3 and 30 million. The current observed rate of extinction may be as much as 100,000 times the background rate indicated by the fossil record. A species may be rare in the sense that its geographic and/or habitat ranges are small, or in the sense that local populations, even where they occur, are small. Many species are naturally rare, but just by virtue of their rarity, species are not necessarily at risk of extinction. However, other things being equal, it will be easier to make a rare species extinct. Some species are born rare, others have rarity thrust upon them as a result of action of humans. The principal causes of decline are overexploitation, habitat degradation, and the introduction of exotic species. Overexploitation occurs when people harvest a population for food or trophies at a rate that is unsustainable. Human beings adversely affect habitat in three ways. A proportion of available habitat may simply be destroyed, or it may be degraded by pollution, or it may be disturbed by human activities to the detriment of some of its occupants. Human-caused introduction of exotic species, which may occur accidentally or intentionally, have sometimes been responsible for dramatic changes to native species and natural communities. Rare alleles of a gene may confer no immediate advantage but could turn out to be well suited to change environmental conditions in the future. Small populations to have lost rare alleles through genetic drift have less potential to adapt. A more immediate potential problem is inbreeding depression. When populations are small, there is a tendency for individuals breeding with one another to be related, and this may lead to reduction in fertility, survivorship, growth rates, and resistance to disease. A given population may have been reduced to a very small size by one or more of the processes described before, and this may have led to an increased frequency of mating among relatives and the expression of deleterious recessive alleles in offspring, leading to reduced survivorship and fecundity and causing the population to become still smaller. This is the so-called extinction vortex. Much of conservation biology is a crisis discipline concerned with small populations in immediate danger of extinction. A high level of uncertainty governs the dynamics of small populations, whereas large populations can be described as being governed by the law of averages. Three kinds of uncertainty or variation can be identified that are of particular importance to the fate of small populations: demographic, environmental, and spatial. Moreover, loss of habitats frequently results not only in a reduction in the absolute size of a population, but also the division of the original population into a number of fragments. Population viability analysis, a simulating modeling tool, can be used to estimate the minimum population size of a particular species that should ensure its persistence with an acceptable probability, for example greater than 90% for a reasonable period, for instance 100 years. Armed with such information, managers can work out the best approach to guard against extinction, for instance supplementary feeding, predator control, one or more reserve of appropriate size, etc. Given limited funds to purchase protected areas, it is important to devise priorities so they can be evaluated systematically and chosen with care. We know that biotas of different locations vary in species richness, the extent to which the biota is unique, and the extent to which the biota is endangered. One or more of these criteria could be used to prioritize potential areas for protection. The principles of island biogeography theory provide some clues about the most appropriate shape and disposition of protected areas. The selection of a network of reserves to optimize the protection of biodiversity can be performed on the basis of complementarity, selecting at each step the site that is most complementary to those already selected in terms of the biodiversity it contains, or irreplaceability, defined in terms of the likelihood of an area being required to achieve specified conservation targets. Predicted changes to patterns of temperature and rainfall around the world have important implications for conservation biology. Changes to environmental conditions will affect the size and location of habitable areas of species, whether or not they are currently at risk of extinction. Moreover, natural reserves may turn out to be in the wrong places. Models of global climate change can be used by ecologists to safeguard species and communities when planning for the conservation of individual species or designing reserve networks. So at the end of this lecture, I have some questions for you as usual. The first one is, how would you define the aims of conservation biology? For you, are zoos and botanical gardens useful in nature conservation? And the last, how can the loss or introduction of a single species have conservation consequences throughout a world ecological community? So thank you for your attention, and see you at the last lesson.